Welcome to Do It Live Autonomy Podcast. This is an awesome episode because it is the last episode of Do It Live Autonomy Podcast for season 4. We're going to be taking a break. We just had graduation last night. It was a lot of fun. That lecture, we'll talk about it, but it has so many cool aspects to it, and how Rich kind of saved it for the end. So we have with us today a mixture of graduates, a mixture of season 4 students about to be graduates. And today we're going to be co-hosting with this mission with Justin Olson and James Ford. They're going to be taking a stab at leading the conversation along, and we're going to be recapping everyone's experience here in season 4. I'll kick it off and just say, man, to have been a part of this project since the beginning and watch the growth and watch the community all step up, and like what we got accomplished this last season is like insane. It feels like we've been working on autonomy for 2 years, and it definitely feels like 4. Each season seems like a year in its own because we're just traveling through light speed as we grow and watch newcomers join and like watch them blossom and grow too. Autonomy Limited got kicked off a year ago on January 1st, and so we're just about coming to our first year as a business, and it's insane how much the whole team has grown, developed, and fleshed out their departments and our onboarding experiences with clients, apprentices, work trade, and all the projects that we've been able to deliver this last year. It's crazy. This next year in 2021 is going to be even like 10x. So I'm really excited about all the foundation work that we've laid, and now we can continue to build this structure of being able to help out small businesses out there, and also like student projects, the freedom movement, and being able to help out influencers out there. This last year we've helped out Mark Passio, Derek Bros, Ernie Hancock. We're starting to help out with his project, and then myriad of student projects that we're helping bring to market. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Justin and James Ford, and going to kick back and just enjoy this episode because we worked really hard this season, and now we get to take a little bit of break with the holidays coming up, and the next season is going to be starting off in I think probably late February, but we got a lot to do in between then. We're going to have guest hosts, guest presenters. We got a lot of marketing to do to get the good word out about season 5, which is going to be the best season yet. Let's not joke. That's been building to this point is just, as you'll hear, turning out to be a really smooth experience for our new students. And I'm excited to hear about it. Justin, James, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Welcome. So this is season 4, week 13. It's graduation. And this is big for James and myself. We are doing this live as our first time on the podcast. So how are you doing today, James?
Oh, great. Yeah, no, it's great to have this space. You know, that's one thing about Autonomy is everything they're bringing together. We can participate and just to have this conversation, you know, and share how we've all grown through the process, you know, wherever we're at, you know.
So, James, you were a student in Autonomy throughout this last season. What were your observations over the last 13 weeks?
Well, you know, just what the space affords. You know, I initially, like we were speaking earlier, I did have some issues with an older computer, accessing the camera, accessing the microphone. And even those learning process is just part of the whole experience, you know. And then to learn where everybody else is coming from, it's the whole process is part of I guess, the journey or a part of the learning process. And then you just enjoying that, and in the communication, enjoying the process, and just from what it has done for my own experience with some of the work that I was working with my own, it opened up doors of possibilities of, oh wow, I could use these tools in a way that I had not imagined before. And it's, and so just grow from there. And I imagine that's what autonomy is about, right? How can we use these things, get on the same page as being individuals and uh, autonomous, and do it in our own way, At least that's my
And
perspective.
certainly, really, how to live as autonomous peoples amongst each others. Because we're seeing now a whole world around us where people are getting ahead by piling on top of each other and pulling other people down.
Sure.
And really, the solution does lie within each of us to be able to navigate the world in our own autonomous way so that we can all coexist without infringing on each other's freedoms.
And I think that's a key word with freedom, is when, when there is a very rigid structure, when people are controlling a certain outcome, failures are not welcome. So in this, failures are how we learn. So in certain structures, and that's another way of using, people use that to control a certain structure when they want a certain based outcome. So here's the opportunity for people to engage in a learning process where failure is naturally a process of growing and learning, forward, as everybody here is.
And as we learn in autonomy, it is a necessary component of success. It's actually the raw material that you use to build your way towards getting what you want in life.
Yeah, and that's where the freedom is, right? That space where those perceived failures, or maybe those who the conditioning of how maybe we should perceive ourselves engaging in the world, such as the misplaced labels of failure and loss, becomes different, as you just suggested. No, it's about growth. There is no bad failing as long as we can learn and grow forward from it. It's part of the process. But that gets taken away for, obviously we all understand. But yeah.
Yeah, and with that perspective, the freedom comes from really our own acknowledging of that, our own acknowledging that our failures are the building points of what we become, and that a lot of this mundane that we live through in the world is actually material that we transform into what we are and how we want to live in a idealistic sense.
Sure, sure. And yeah, yeah. And it's like it is this, and it's a like Rich. You hear people speak about it. It's that space. We come upon that space ourselves where we experience that freedom. Wherever that changes, we each have. No, we can be, we can go through these things, but there really is that space where we see it ourselves, and this offers that. And it seems like, it's great to be able to even communicate about it, because people fight against it because it's more about, there are certain, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we can, yes, it's nice to be able to engage in that space and to share it to a degree.
Yeah, so I'll share a quick story, and then I'd like to open it up and spin it around a little bit with all the various participants here. But my moment in autonomy of actually finding that real internal sense of freedom was the 4th of July, and I was actually going through season 3. I wasn't watching the live lectures, but I was still watching the lectures on Friday night as just part of the course. And I got to week 4 where there was the discussion on crossing the chasm and taking the leap of faith in yourself. And even though I was just sitting in that chair for 5 hours on end, internally, I was going through the process of taking a leap of faith in myself, getting back into a place of believing in myself and having confidence in myself. And the next day I went up in the mountains and I saw this tree that had broken under the wind. So it was open and cracked and broken, but it was still hanging at almost a 90-degree angle, and it had a shoot growing straight up out of it. And it just made me think of what a human being is like coming out of a public indoctrination system. I meant to say
Mm.
schooling, where it'll kind of do that. But autonomy for me was like that ability to grow back out
Yeah.
of the processes that had been done for me. So that was my moment of recognizing this freedom that this can allow.
Yeah, it reminded me that the John Taylor Gatto conversation with Rich when they speak about schooling, which the fish, right? You have the one fish, you watch a school of fish, and the one turns one way, and the rest of the school goes with it. That image. That's kind of the idea of what happens when that freedom's not there. It's always stuck with me. Yeah,
You
that seems
move
like
around like sheep. Yeah.
that seems like that seems like a good place to jump off, right? What have people's experience, like you just shared that experience? What have people's experience been?
Yeah, has anybody participating here really had like a point in their life that coincided with autonomy where you're able to recognize maybe more of what freedom was or meant to yourself or to our species as a whole?
Because I think we do all have our own experience with it. Like it's undefined.
Anybody ever believed in themselves and crossed a chasm, solved a problem?
Well, I think sometimes it doesn't. Everybody's experience may be different. It could be like change comes into different. I think people define it different ways.
And it does happen in many different ways.
Yeah, yeah. That's what freedom is, right? The individual experience. Well, me and Joanne, we helped each other out with just with the computer. I was having issues with Zoom, and Joanne herself would. So that was both of us had an experience. It just was a learning experience. What was your experience, Joanna?
Well, I actually I'm not really in season 4, so I don't want to hog the
Well, it's a conversation
mic.
about freedom.
But
Yeah, we wanted you to be here.
okay. I just want to make sure I'm not hogging because I'm kind of in season 4, but I'm going to be really in season 5. So, yeah, I think that what I've noticed before I came into autonomy, I mean, I've been involved with natural law principles for many years, but the thing I've been involved with has disintegrated quite a bit and has become like groupthink. So what I was noticing was that I would know the principle, but I would be incapable of speaking in a group when I knew the groupthink was against the principle. And since I've been in autonomy, I have noticed, like immediately after just doing Toastmasters last Sunday morning, I was able to articulately speak to someone whose name escapes me right now about what I do. And that just came out of nowhere to me. But I just need, like, I think I seem to need a group of people. I seem to be unable to stand on my own, even though I understand my truth. I need to have that group, like the family of origin type of group of people that are also on the same path as I. Not and if I'm on my own in a group of people that is just going in groupthink with the easy, soft way of doing things, then I have a really hard time standing up for principle. But now that I have autonomy, I feel stronger in my ability to speak the truth, if that makes any sense.
So, Joanna, I'd like to ask what this group you were in before autonomy that was connected to this natural law. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it's basically I'm still involved, but it's just most people are under indoctrination. So we have principles that we try to live by, but they're basically on the wall. And it's like being in an airplane and, being the pilot of an airplane, but disregarding the dashboard and just flying on whatever you feel like flying on and hoping you're not going to hit the mountain.
Yeah, Jesus, take the wheel. So,
Well,
Joanna, what's some contrast between this group and what you found coming into autonomy?
well, I just see people treating each other excellently, and I see people. I mean, I just see I've only been in autonomy now for maybe 3 weeks, right, or since Thanksgiving Day. So I just feel more, well, actually, I can say outside in the regular world, I've been able to say no and stand up for it and not be weak, just from my interactions with people on autonomy.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that if I'm in in another situation where I have to stand up for principle, it's not going to be that hard for me to do it. Whereas before I felt very weak because I was just on my own.
It's great. Well, yeah, I
And
think
I,
there's something to know that people, being an individual doesn't mean isolation. And just to know that people, I felt the same way. I think a lot of us going into these areas where perhaps we're engaging in freedom, it's good to know that that people are not alone, even if it's just people holding the same principles. It's a nice way to, to engage in the world, at least from my perspective.
can
Well,
I
I
ask?
get, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to follow up on what you're saying, Joanna. It's just going through the full season of season 4. On a personal level, what I've witnessed personally, my aha moment was just being involved with a group of people that, um, the integrity is there, uh, the consistency is there, and that's been very encouraging for me. It's something I've struggled with prior to joining Autonomy, and so to kind of give you a little context on that, I run a nonprofit, so a lot of that's with the aquaponics and growing food and teaching people how to grow their own food, and so one of the continual struggles I've had is getting other people involved on a consistent basis. There's always been this uh, the it, New Mexico has this culture of the land of manana, and
It's not just New
prevalent.
Mexico.
No, it's ample. We call it the land of manana here. So it's the running joke, and unfortunately, it's not funny because things don't get done in a proficient manner. And so when I joined Autonomy, um, thankfully I've been able to rub some of that culture onto some of the other volunteers, and we've had some growth in the organization. And so we've been able to acquire some land. We've been working on that, working on revamped our new brochure, uh, got this greenhouse cleaned up a little bit. So one of the things I've always made it a point, especially in the last 6 weeks, is okay. I know I'm putting in some good time in Autonomy, but I also want to be consistent and maintain that integrity with this group because I'm getting great value in that. So usually these last 6 Saturdays I've done do it live from the greenhouse because I can't go to a coffee shop. None of them are open. I have a lot of other people around me, particularly family and some of my friends that are not with the program. They just get along to get along, and so I don't want to fall back into that culture. And it's like, look, I want to be able to do my calls and participate on a elevated level. And so even and I invite people to be on the call with me, but they're like, oh no, what is that? I don't want to be part of that. And so the thing is, um, I'm at a point now, as I move forward, it may just be me from my own group, and that's perfectly fine. And I've met some great people in this group that I'd love to work with, and there have been opportunities. And what's sad? Well, it's not sad. It doesn't surprise me. During the course of this season, there have been fellow students that have visited this greenhouse. And there's people that have known I've been doing this for 5 years, and they can't find 5 minutes of their day to come by and see what I'm doing here. And it's tough, but at the same time, I know that I'm around a better caliber of people. I look forward to season 5. Yeah, I graduated, yeah, but I think I'm going to be a part of this for life. There's plenty of projects that I'm going to be starting up with fellow students, and other people involved with this. And so the sky's the limit moving forward.
Yeah, and we appreciate seeing you, Danny. Congratulations on that, and well done on your projects. I'd say you conduct yourself with excellence, and every time you show up and add to these conversations, you add value and you're very succinct in what you do. So I'm curious, since you've been participating in Autonomy, how has the work environment around you in your day-to-day life started shifting, either in the way that you perceive it or in the way that it actually goes about working?
With the nonprofit, it's the level of expectation is a lot different. It's not the land of manana anymore. It's like, okay, you don't want to get this objective done. I'm going to find somebody that can. And so now that I have this group to work with, I'm able to speak with other people freely about this. And there's parts of it, not only from an administrative side, but the actual physical building of greenhouses, of selling systems, of working on the website. That's picked up the pace because it was there before. It just the sense of urgency wasn't there. Now it's a little different, and so the people that want to pick up the pace and want to be more involved, they're performing. The other people that just want to fall by the wayside, hey, did I really lose anything? No, because there's going to be some people stepping into some roles moving forward that are graduates of autonomy or getting there. And so the trajectory is going to look a lot different. On a different note, since I'm fully employed somewhere else, I'm a consultant for architects. And so in that realm, my productivity's changed for the better. I'm doing more online presentations, and just the autonomy experience has helped me be more proficient in doing presentations, working with PowerPoints and the cameras and different programs, like Zoom and GoToMeeting. And so even in that realm, I think it's added a new dimension of what I can do. And going into next year, that might be the main area of focus for me. Is I might not need to go in the office anymore. I can do these type of presentations or this kind of consulting from home. And so as I go into season 5, my goal is how do I eliminate the employer and do this full time separately of that. So it'll be interesting to see how that transpires.
But Danny, all of those things that you can do have already been open as possibilities in business. Couldn't you have gotten to where you are without autonomy and just went ahead and started operating like that?
I didn't have some of the proficiency that I learned from autonomy. So even going through probably the middle of the program, weeks 5 through 8, there was some areas, I could have said I could have done it that way, but the way the industry is going, I'm glad I took that learning, because now I'm positioned to go that route. And so I just didn't feel comfortable doing that before without the quote unquote backing of an employer. So now that I'm designing that aspect out, okay, how do I position it? And so I learned quite a bit from the last second half of the season on what I can do towards that. Because what I'm doing or what I'm looking to do, it's kind of unprecedented. Usually there is a kind of a backer by some kind of corporation or company. And I'm referring to building materials. So even though I'm a consultant, I'm representing a company for their product rather than a full industry consultant. And so I think that's where the transition is going to be made, where I don't necessarily have to represent that one particular product, as good as it is. I'm not going to take away from the product, However, I think I could bring more utility to the client base as an overall consultant for that particular industry. Yeah, so there'd be something very different than what's out there. Not a bad thing, but if I don't give it a shot, I won't know.
Sure.
I'd say we need different and solutions that fit, and people with excellence that are moving at rapid pace towards those solutions, while we have other people moving at rapid pace to take away our freedoms and our ability to implement our solutions. So, commend you for that.
So,
Thank you.
so Danny, as a consultant, so would it be like you would be teaching other people how to produce their own hydroponic kind of
Yes.
food?
Yeah, so in consulting, it would be that for the people that want to design or build their own greenhouses or their own systems.
I had an
So
idea of that. Yeah.
So that would be on a commercial level, but also what I'm looking to do is from the home-based aspect where, okay, I have a smaller system that is used for home use, so it can be used inside a kitchen. It's only about a 2x3 footprint, and so how do you operate this piece of equipment to grow your own food? And so I wanted to go beyond just a simple instructional. I want people to actually do this. So I'm not marketing it as a consumer product. I'm marketing it as, hey, if you made this investment in this unit, you need to be growing food. And so how do we keep people motivated, encouraged through that?
No, that's great, because for the people who want to do that, that's really what's probably needed to take that step. I imagine. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there is a bit of a learning curve to it. So we want people to actually learn this and not just learn it, but tell their neighbors, tell their kids. We need everybody growing their own food right now. That's just the only way we're going to really get the true food sovereignty as as a species is if everybody's growing their own food. And at one point in history, we had that. Everybody knew how to grow their own food, and we're at a point in history where less than 1% of the population has the ability to grow their own food.
Yes, and
Less than one.
And even to push it, like just for you to, even if someone is, it raises the conversation also, just for you being out there. Because like, say for me, like growing up in an urban area, people don't think about food. It's something that comes off a shelf. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's just the not intentional. That's just the ignorance of it. So it's just anything to raise awareness too is great. It's really necessary. So yeah, definitely hats off.
And just for a little bit of perspective on the whole problem, it's less than 1% that know how to grow their own food, and about a quarter of this nation's food supply supplied by the Bayer Monsanto merger. So there are some big problems in place that will take grassroots movements of people growing their own food in this case, but ultimately the self-reliance and self-resilience will be what prevails.
Very true.
So this is a point where I want to go ahead and just congratulate the people who have already gone through and had their posted interviews for the season 4 graduation. That would be Owen Hunt, Ted, Ludvio, Jason, Louis, Deborah, and Lee, and others that have taken your interview. I just wanted to give a congratulations to everybody who has made it through the learning curve, got through the trough, found that there was value, stuck through with it, and now is here on the other side graduating autonomy. But really it's you take the first 3 steps, the input, processing, and output, and you don't lose your freedom by taking those 3 steps, and then you have the basis for, you get to graduate on and actually use these as life skills. This really is skill sets and rites of passage for the 21st century. So congratulations to everybody that has, through their own free will and volition, chosen to go through an educational process that not only empowers them, but really makes it the whole of us as a people moving in the light direction when individuals start learning these processes and them in life. So I wanted to spark this next conversation with you, James, and I'd like to ask, what does it really mean to ignite your potential?
What does it mean to ignite one's potential? Well, I think what it means is that it is someone is acting from one's own action, right? It is, even if it's just the first understanding that you're taking a step that someone else has not directed for you. To ignite one's potential, it may be being offered, like say Rich and Autonomy giving someone an offer, but it's really for that person to be willing to take that step, knowing that they're going into uncharted waters. You know, whatever that past, maybe it's the step past the fear, the step that's just, or maybe it's just even the awareness of whatever it is we're going past. You know, if that's someone's, you know, it's, I guess it's different from anything. So I think that spark is, yeah, it's that first insight, that first understanding that someone's going to take a step, that first step in the direction of autonomy, you know?
Yeah, it's like that first recognition on the path of learning is really the recognition that you'll never stop learning and that you don't really know that much. And especially, something that I've recognized is when I learn how to validate thoughts, just any thought that arises, I can go ahead and ask, have I validated that thought? Where does it come from? And it's a pretty big deal to find out that 85-90% of your psychology is driftwood. It's just a habit that's kind of floating as a bunch of discoordinate points. And I,
Yeah, but I think, you know, I think that's a place too where, like, I was thinking about it when Danny was speaking, and it, well, and that's great. Like people like yourself, people like Danny, who are stepping into a leader role. People will lead by example. That, but we still need to be compassionate of those who haven't had that spark yet, because it's not most. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, it's sometimes that it is. It's, I think, from my limited perspective, it is habitual thought. People get caught in habitual thought because they're trained as such. You know, I think that's the spark, the observation of, wait, I may be wrong. You know, at least that's from my perspective. You know,
so
because it is.
what's our role in helping other people's find their spark without infringing upon their freedoms?
I think it's show don't tell, because
Bingo.
I don't think you can bring anybody to it. You know, you can, we cannot bring another person to that, their own, their individual spark. It's, I don't even think it's our role, but in pursuit, maybe through our own pursuits and having these conversations, we are just in the action of it, participating in our own individual freedom by engaging with fellows who are engaging in their own individual freedom together. You know, we're, that's it. That's the spark is, you know, I don't know what the words are, but that's my you know, how I feel, you know, you know, how I perceive it, you know.
So yeah, let's add some detail to this, James. You definitely look like a man that's waking up. I want to go back to this point before you actually like opened your mind and saw things for what they were. There was probably a period of months or years before that where you had a few incidents or exposures, little things you weren't expecting to see that kind of showed the way or gave you signs that were like, they were lights that you were seeing at the edge of your constellation, and they were little beacons, if you will.
I,
um
I think, well, I've come to understanding now. Yeah, there's many details, right? There's many details of, like, being, not being aware of my reaction. I see it in my reaction. I was living a reactionary life, unaware. I may have had knowledge of, and understandings, but I think from my, what you were talking about, habitual thinking or these kind of thoughts, for me, it's really a place. They would say there was, I had habitual actions that I was unhappy with. but there's habitual reactions we have that we are happy with. So we may address the habitual actions that maybe we've been feeling discomfort from or pain. I may have a habit, say it's smoking, or I eat too much, or I get, so I feel the pain of that. But I may have a habitual reaction that I may even benefit from. So I don't ever get, for me, what I've came to is I came to observe that I was living in more of a reactionary life rather than a place. That's for me where that place of observance is. Observing that space, then taking action. Because I wasn't, I could never really, I was stuck in a place where I didn't feel like I was moving, because I was reacting more to the stimuluses that are, I think initially I just thought it was my failings, but now being more aware that our society is participating in that through schooling. So it's not necessarily, it's living in a reactionary life, because we could grab for anything to avoid the present moment. It could be this, I could grab, I call them escape routes or escape routes. What am I doing not to be right here, right now, so I can observe? How could I engage in a trivium if I can't really observe the factors in front of me fully, if I'm reacting all the time? So for me, it was not living the life I wanted to in a healthy way, I think.
So
Generally speaking.
what did that look like when you were in the process of recognizing that, say, a large part of your life was just reactive in nature? What did that look like waking up into you being the kind of person that wants to choose to be here presently?
It's very subtle. It's like it's different things. Emotionally, not feeling uh, maybe fear, anxiety, things, or feeling more of a feeling where I'll give you an example of more of a physical. In New York, I spent a lot of years bartending, and I became, I was successful in that area, and I had walked into this establishment to say hello to a friend, and I hadn't been there in a while, and I had changed a great deal in myself, like through observing things that I was changing in my life. And I walked in and I looked in the environment, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, this place is totally different from my experience from the last time I went in, because I was different. And my engagement and my relationships to all those people, not that it was good or bad, I had realized that I had made a shift in myself, and I wasn't engaging in that experience the same way. And I realized that I had a lot of fixed ideas of how I was. It was almost like I was walking into a role, into that scenario. And it wasn't just me. That's where the world is all a stage. That's how I kind of relate to that. We all kind of, there are so for me, it's one of these things that I had an experience myself that I understood, that ideas that I had held to be so were not so, and I guess one of the great things for me is I come from kind of, yeah, don't tell me, I'll tell you. And I had an idea that I thought was so, and it was a gentleman that I approached him without going into details, and I said, I understand this works for you, and I use words. I was like, but I don't know how to f this is actual, and he explained it to me. I'm being vague, but because I don't want to get into the point is that he shared it to me in a way that I would have never came up with myself, and I'm not. And I said, whoa, I don't know this thing. And so that if I don't know that, and if all these changes were happening at the same time, and I think it was because I became willing to, it was that willingness to accept that I don't know. You know what I mean? It's very subtle. That's my experience. Like, it's the factors for me, and the fact, and true, a lot of it had something to do with me banging my head against the wall a few times.
Would you say it was in line with igniting your potential?
Without a doubt. I mean, well, let me say this. I think inherently, I think that's where inalienable rights is. I think we inherently all have ultimate potential. Every human being in the world has potential. And we have the subjugation of nature through mechanisms and other people are put upon us. and it stifles human potential.
So that
So-
is a great foundational basis, an axiom to start with. Every being has this unlimited, ineffable, infinite potential, and we're cut from the same cloth of creation in many different shapes and forms.
And from my perception, it really is what the forefathers intended. As for talking about inalienable rights endowed by the Creator regarding the separation of church and state, because the state is an organized. I mean, so the religion and state separating that. From my perception, when we were addressing divine right of the king, right? So that is a rule of law that was of more of a authoritarian structure that had nothing to do with the freedom of inalienable. It's more that's my thing of nature, the separation of nature, which is inalienable rights, and probably where we're going today with, the synthetic world we live in. For me, the place that I would say that's the separation, subjugation of nature and natural law.
Yeah, so this is kind of the great fork in the road, if you will, that we're born into, where as an axiom we have infinite potential, but as a world that we find ourselves born into, there are a number of things that want to take away our freedom and not allow us to develop to our full potential, and a whole lot of people and organizations that want to be middlemen between us and recognizing that we are the same consciousness as all of creation.
And it's very subtle as well. We see today like people, and that's why it's like it's hard to judge because people are brought into certain situations and saying, okay, if you play by the rules, this will be the reward. So sometimes it's like the boiling frogs, syndrome. People are lulled into it. So I agree 100%. We're not. Sometimes we're kind of brought into this and we're not aware that this is happening. So we're very fortunate even to have that perception. Not everybody's going to have the perception of, wait, there's something wrong here. So there's something to be grateful, even just to have that. Maybe people.
So this will open it up a little bit. If we have infinite potential, but a world that doesn't want us to reach that potential, what is the medium that actually gets us so that we can actualize that potential without the world taking control of our minds and us living less than we want to live at? And I would suggest and argue that skill sets and rites of passage are actually what enable us to take the inherent potential that we have, flesh it out into something actionable, and then allow us to progress both symbolically and through the various stages of development inside of ourselves towards living in that state of actualization. Adam James, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Justin. I wanted to jump on your comment about, let's see. I don't know. It seems like we have this bias towards if we're infinite potential, why can't we just be that? But I mean, you said it with your suggestion, like rites of passage. What's the passage? It's a place where you can only go one way, forwards or backwards. There's only one axis. Now, a good rite of passage lets you choose and understand the passage, and so that you're very adept at moving through it and maturing to another stage of life. But I think that comes from if you don't understand forces trying to mold you, you can't become a force to mold yourself either. Or I guess to put it another way, like the reason we have evil in the world is so that we can learn to have compassion, learn to overcome it. I mean, otherwise we can't be good if you want to be Manichaean about it.
Absolutely, and that's a old philosophical concept that to see something, it requires the contrast of something that is its opposite.
Well, I mean, that could be just duality can be, well, they can say like duality, right? So it's like, what is then we? I mean, this is a philosophical discussion they've had for ages, right? Good and
We
evil.
can go there.
So, like, well, so then I think we would have to define what evil was, right? And so for what that brings up to me, I think I forget who it was, but someone put it very succinct for me. It's like the idea of the duality of hot and cold, right? And then we say, all right, there is hot and cold, and everybody say, yes, they're opposite. But in actuality, it is one process of heat. How much energy is in this area where either there's a high concentration of energy, which gives heat, or it is not a high concentration, which would be cold, right? That's like the duality. So I always looked at as evil as, and this is just my perception, is evil is when people are acting in total ego, in self-service, when they have not had any observation in the freedom, which, so because for me, I think freedom is this is just my perception. My freedom is the negation of that which accumulates to being a state of evil. And for me, it's in this, good or bad is the same kind of, there's no duality. Is the person acting within this space of life, their actions are what creates this phenomena in the world. And if they are acting in total self-service, they will hurt people to get whatever this perceived idea of what they want is. And the lack of that, so that's my perception of where good and evil lies.
So let's
Can I jump in on this one?
oh sure.
My website's called End Evil, and so I spent a lot of time thinking about what evil means. And I like the definition from Jeremy Locke, the book The End of All Evil. And he says evil is the destruction of freedom. And I've really stuck with that line because to me, like I've thought a lot about what you're talking about, you know, the duality, like the yin yang, you know, there's the two polarities, right? But evil, in the sense I'm discussing it, is that evil that's done by humans upon other humans by different acts of stealing and wrong, you know, objective wrong. And so I think that can be eliminated from our dealings with other humans. And I think that's kind of what I've been trying to say is let's have the imagination to see a world where evil is defeated. And that doesn't mean bad things don't happen. You know, there's still volcanoes and storms and, you know, people getting sick. And that is that contrast that's always going to be there that you're describing in the bigger picture of things. But we can eliminate evil of humans treating other people that way. And we can have a strict non-tolerance in the way we deal with one another where we don't do evil things.
And
I think that's an important distinction. I'd like to hear what you guys think on that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you know, I think it's very important in that what we do is, like, say people kind of personify evil as if it's something other, but when in fact it's just, no, evil is the actions of men, other human beings, and by people like say, like, I don't want to go, they take, there may be a horrific event and they'll take one individual and personify that person as evil, but in fact it was the action taken by human beings. And I think I would agree that yes, evil is just, it is not any other kind of, I think when we keep it simple to these actions of one human being upon another is either evil or it's not, you know, because we could add details and personify it, and then it takes us off of that simple observation of what it is, you know. And I think also we would have to define freedom. If evil is the removal, I'm just going along, like
I'll attempt that. I'll attempt these too. I've been wanting to draw out some analogy with my words, and I'm going to take it from the micro to the macro, and then we'll come back. So in Hermetic alchemy, there is a white sun and there is a black sun, and we can tie this in with the yin yang, and pretty much one of them is the everlasting nuclear reactor that has the energy source that we perceive as reality through these senses that we have. And the black sun is the ever consuming, it's like death, but the actual energy that is just the consumptive of the universe. So on one side, we have an ever bringing forth of life and light, and on the other side, an ever consumption of all of that creation. And that is this eternal Ouroboros. So where this ties in, the closest thing to well, not necessarily, because there's a lot of ways that it ties in closely, but one of the stories that we can all tie this to is that of the Cains and Abels. And when we're talking about actually defining what is freedom and what is evil, it's that story in particular, the Genesis story is a historical document about the first human beings being Cain and Abel, one of them who was very pro freedom, worked with excellence, gave the right offerings, and actually communed with the infinite, and the other that used jealousy and wanted to quickly bring about the destruction of what was good to serve his self-interested desires.
Yeah. It, well, I hear where you come from. What made me think of too is like we like it's like night and day. Night and day is just the Earth spinning. So we have the dark side of the Earth is simply that's the night because the sun is turning in this natural process we're going through every day. So I'm not sure that there is that death is actually not just a processing of that. I'm not. Just a perception. And for me, I have you ever seen the movie Noah
I've
from
not.
Noah's Ark? It's I forget his name. The director. He's a great director. He's from Coney Island, Brooklyn. And he showed this, and it was just what you were saying, and it just had a profound effect on me because the way he expressed it, and it was the idea that Noah was he was in total commune with nature. I think that's why he was chosen to take one of each of the species to put on the ark. But the king was he was the guy who was controlling the people. He was the controller, right? Who was perceived like the Cain of the two, right? And so there was a scene where they showed he was pissed off at Noah because Noah could commune with him. Everybody said, "Oh, Noah speaks to whatever the word was for that, right?" And so he's sitting there. He has all his people behind him, and it's raining out, and he's screaming at the heavens, going, "Why do you not speak to me?" He's banging his chest. He says, "I am like you. You speak to him. I lead my people. I feed my people." Right. So for me, that is where he somehow has gotten into thought, and he has the ideas of what. So for me, his ideas of what he should be speaking in his language because he has the image of him. You know what I mean? The image of is his own image, and so Noah is just he's in accord with whatever it is. That was my perception. So for me, evil goes into the place of that. However he formulated that idea, he'll take that to the end. You know what I mean? And that guy could be Cain, who kills his fellow because he has an idea. That's my perception of it.
In short of an educational process, because as we learn and come to observe of reality, ignorance and nescience do lead to generally an unwitting propagation of evil, and that's something that's been pulled over us. It's one of those things that stands between our potential and how to actualize it.
And I think that is another very. I mean, it's really good for me when I first understood that. I think from Mark Passio, when he said nescience, it's like another one of those things where we're aware of it, but when someone puts their finger on it, when I heard him talk about ignorance was, oh no, I am ignoring what is, and then nescience is, uh, not having the knowledge. I'm like, oh wow, yes, that's control. That's that control that can. Yeah, I mean yes, it's a huge thing to understand, at least for myself. You know what I mean? To have that in concrete understanding.
Yeah, and a lot of good reason why some people don't want to understand it, because when you realize that the things that you don't know are actually possibly, maybe even likely contributing to taking away other people's freedoms or theft of some sort, then there's a lot of dissonance that's unfortunately created when you grow up in indoctrination to live this way, and then you recognize what a more holistic way is,
Sure.
and you got a lot of distance between here and there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
And that's where the skill sets and rites of passage come in.
I was thinking, James, what you were saying about potential and unlimited potential.
Mm.
You know, we have this capacity for good. And
Mhm.
what good is, actually, good equals freedom.
Mm.
And freedom and good equal gratitude. You know, the ability, life always wants to grow. Like up out of the cracks will come, you know, it is, if you look at nature, it's always pushing, it'll eat its own foot off to get out of a trap.
Mm.
It never gives up. Life is always seeking gratitude. It's always appreciating the ability. So anything that's going against that flow, that's going the opposite to destroy it, that's what's evil, you know. And
Mm.
good is being gracious and thankful for the unlimited potential that it exists to grow.
Mm.
Great definitions, Chris.
That's the stuff I think about, man.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's good stuff. Like, and I think understand like what Justin mentioned is that okay? Yes, what the thief, the robbery of that, right? Okay, the robbery of the thieving of what of those that which would the trespass that whatever those trespass is a form of stealing. But what like for me is like where does it lie that that individual like that individual for me it's like what makes a king think that they could subjugate a whole people. There's that's there's a for me there's an ideology, there's something there, there's like there's something there in their thought process that that person believes that is so, you know. I'm not saying to define it. So for me, yeah, I just yeah, it's a good conversation. That's just my observation. I think that's where it lies. I think it lies somewhere in a false ideology that is unnatural and trespasses against yeah like what you know what's being suggested here, you know. So yeah, I think there's subtle things that putting words on it it kind of you know yeah.
So let's go to solutions. What do we have in our day and era that can actually be used as a form of intellectual self-defense so that we're not unwittingly propagating evil, and ideally also knowing how to conduct ourselves towards the success that we want without infringing on other people's freedoms? What do those skill sets and rites of passage look like that we as individuals ignite our potential, and as this new world unfolds, you know, actually use what we are to orient all of us towards freedom?
I got some answers.
Let's hear them.
I would say four things. One thing we have is our time. You know, that's our most valuable tool. We have our time, and then our willpower, our force of will, you know, and then we have teamwork, which is each other, you know, other humans and our connection to other humans. So if we combine those things, you know, we use our time and apply our willpower and work together with other humans, that is our only way, really. And then, of course, our imagination and creativity is really the ultimate key, you know. Those are things that come to my mind.
I would agree with all of those things. Yeah, the time is our non-renewable resource, and as James already demonstrated, the attention that we give, that I'm centered here, I'm not going to let myself get distracted. If you can combine the time that you spend with that centeredness to not get distracted and use it to do productive things like talk with other people to implement solutions, then we're definitely moving towards freedom, and we're thinking, and that's definitely the important part of what's actually gone on here. I'd say, as most everyone in this call live is now at a point of graduation. If you're in this long and you're still sticking around, chances are you've adopted a culture of excellence and you're paying attention and you're here with it. And look at this, we're doing it live. We've implemented all of these components together, and this is just a small dojo, a safe room to practice these things that ultimately do play out on a larger scale in our world as solutions.
Yeah. And also to understand too, it's okay. Like everybody comes to things in their own place, and we do engage with the world, and it's okay not to be 100% all the time. You know, we you know, sometimes it's just to make sure when the shit's hitting the fan that we could ground ourselves for a moment. Sometimes it's just a moment, you know. Sometimes we get that little moment to get ourselves back and then get back going. You know, I think that's like from what the beauty of what is there is a foundation. You know, we may even if we get we get hit with the storm, there's a foundation there. We go, okay, the autonomy and this idea, just that space gets us back to that. So we don't have to get too frazzled, you know, because we all do come to the table with different ways of addressing that, you know. So that's I think it is like for me, whatever it is for each of us, that space is that place of freedom where we could all, you know, that maybe part of the foundation.
But don't we have to be careful when we're using willpower and force of will to not get into forcing other people to our will? I think that's what you were talking about. Because so for me, I mean, I use spiritual principles and intuition and prayer also, meditation. And I think those are important aspects to maybe the skill sets. I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously I haven't done all the work yet, but I mean, just something that was discussed. I mean, you know, in the attempt to eliminate evil, I feel for myself, I have to be careful not to place myself in a place of superiority over others and determining what is evil. And I think you were talking about this before, that it's like a thing where you have to attract people to it rather than force people.
Hmm.
I don't know.
No, I think that I understand where you come from. For me, keeping it simple, sometimes it's just like I understanding it first, understanding what you know, because sometimes I could do something stupid. Sometimes, oh, geez, I screwed up there. At least I can understand it. I'm not going to be perfect all the time, but like understanding that at least that we're participating in the world in a positive way. And I think, yeah, I think understanding will. I think that's part of our own individual journey of how you know, it's like that's I think that's part of the journey of understanding our own willpower or maybe however we define those terms, you know, and how we engage in the world. Because yeah, I guess that's we have to all have to learn our own to a degree.
You know,
But you know, and
I've
most people
done.
and it's a part of me. It's just yeah, I mean, it's great to even have this conversation. Not people don't have this conversation, so I just this is part of it, you know.
I was thinking about what Joanna was saying about force and forcing people, and you know, of course, I agree. That's whenever you're forcing somebody, you're breaking that law of freedom. You know, you're taking away their freedom to do what they want to do or think what they want to think. But that being said, having the willpower to want to help people change themselves is a good thing, and it takes an incredible force of will. If you think of people that we look up to or people in history who've had like incredible persistence, patience, or just will against any odds. And like for me, I can compare it to, I've done a lot of construction work, and like digging a hole in rocky soil, for instance, you have to be more stubborn than those rocks. They're going to work on you all day. Your fingers are going to get blistered. Your arms are going to get tired. You're going to get sweaty. You're going to feel like quitting. But persistence is force of will. And, whatever project we're working on, whether it's ending evil or digging a hole, requires a lot of will, a lot of willpower and force of will to keep pushing yourself through. And when other people see you contorting and pushing and putting that effort force, that is what could possibly inspire them and in their imagination that there's a way to actually do that, because it's very easy to become complacent and just kind of fall into the sleep that most people are in.
Yeah. And I think also, I think as for the individual, is when we push ourselves past that point of like, oh wait, I went past that. Because I've been with a shovel going, oh yeah, oh wait, all right, and then it feels good. It's like, oh wait, I went through that wall, like kind of the runner, you know.
Have you ever got
So
that
it's,
runner's high?
Yeah, you know,
It's
so
pretty
like,
incredible feeling.
yeah, yeah. Because and sometimes those limitations are put on us, like from like, you know, for whatever reason, you know, it's like this discovery process.
What's that famous story about running the mile in less than, I forgot what the time was. Nobody could beat this time for many, many years, you know, and everyone can only run the mile. And this one guy just comes along and totally beats the record. And then right after he does it, in like the following week, 5 or 6 other people do it. But that would have been after, you know, 5-10 years of nobody being able to do that. It's just as soon as this guy showed it could be done, then all these other people. So
and sometimes it's simple, right? Like even say even before someone starts running. Like I had a friend earlier said, "Oh, it was freezing outside." They say, "No, it's not." I went outside. Oh, it was okay. But sometimes if someone could say, "Oh, it's freezing outside," oh, you don't want to run today. Oh, we listen to these little things, but no, step outside yourself. You know what I mean? That's what I did myself. You know, sometimes we just step out. It's like, all right, well, maybe it is, but it's not for me. You know what I mean? It's like these little. Sometimes it's the little and sometimes it's not even intentional. I think that's the beauty of thinking for oneself. You know, we say that we don't just assume that, okay, that person's right. Okay, I'm just going to step outside for a second and see for myself. You know, that very simple. That's sometimes for me, those are the small steps of going, oh, I wouldn't have went running today or whatever it may be, you know?
I mean, I learned from, I know that's come up before and some people in Autonomy, Wim Hof, you know, like I would have never believed that I could do some of the things I was able to do. But, you know, when I saw this guy saying, look, if I do this breathing, I can dive under the ice and, you know, they can pile ice up to my neck and for 2 hours, and this guy could, you know, be okay with that. I'm like, if he can do that, maybe I can heal myself from this problem I'm having right now. I was having a problem where I was having so much allergy, phlegm issues that I had to start using an inhaler like every day. And with that breathing, I healed my body of that. I don't have that problem anymore at all. And I didn't believe that was possible until somebody said that's possible.
Yeah. I did the same. I was doing the Wim Hof. I do the Wim Hof breathing thing every day.
Yeah, I do it twice a day.
Outside.
Makes a difference, right?
Yes, because I think my observation was we have been given standards of what we can do. I think we probably have potentials far greater. I mean, like I walked through Brooklyn. They said, all right, they want people to go on the subway. I was like, you know what? I don't need to take the subway. I have the time today. I'll walk there. And I just have a backpack. I was like, wow, this is great. I'm walking. I'm getting energy. I'm seeing the whole area. I'm breathing. I'm outside. And I'm getting stronger. And like, as Justice, I had the time to do it. You know what? I wasn't going through. So, yeah. I think it's little discoveries like that kind of, we're open to it, you know?
Like in alignment with that creative energy, that imaginative energy that wants to push forward and learn rather than give up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Moment of silence. I guess that was a good conversation. Sinking in, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, so is there any, like, I guess, yeah, I guess it's anybody has any kind of experience, I guess, of freedom, however they express it, you know? I don't know.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hey, you know what's cool about James is because every time I talk to him, I get to see like different parts of his house. So pretty soon, I think I'm gonna be able to see every room you're in. Weren't you first in your garage?
No, it's not my house. I'm at a friend's house. I spoke with you in a car. No, I was at another location. This is not my house.
You're everywhere. You're everywhere. Yes. You're like, where's Waldo? Where's James? So, wow. So freedom. It seems like it's just so simple, right? Freedom or slavery. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. And for so many years of my life, you know, I tried to make it all complicated and I tried to rationalize what I was doing, and I think, well, I know in the background we have the ability to discern whether that's right or wrong. We do. We have it, and it's just how we decide to push that down. And life, thank God, will always bring you circumstances where you come face to face with that. If you're pushing it down, then you get some mighty fine experiences to learn how the consequences for that, and do you like that or don't you? So I think so many times we just make it more complicated, and we waste so many years and so many experiences, and we are unlimited. That's what I really got out of autonomy. There are so many things that I realized that I was thinking in a scarcity mode, and when I thought I had just gotten through all of them, there's more that popped out, and until I really took to my heart that opportunities are out there. There's people. There's solutions. There's even solutions to the fine mess that we're in now. I have no idea what they are, but I know that I'm at the table, and I'm willing to explore and figure out what they are with you guys. So
cool.
There,
So-
what do you think about all that?
Yeah, so Deborah, the way that you were describing like pushing against things or maybe like hiding away from a reality you know is there, and then the world stepping in to show you those experiences, what's that process like coming face to face with the need for growth, and how can people help expedite this process now that we're in a time where we need to wake up as a whole, and a lot of people are wanting to wake up kind of as quickly as they can?
I think you have to set the expectation for your life, and that starts daily. When you wake up, set the expectation that you're a servant. You're willing to extend your value to wherever it needs to be at that point, and who knows what that could look like. But you universe know, and so please put me in the situations where my mind and my eyes notice it. So I think it could just start and be as simple as that. And then when we see things in our life where we're trying to push them down, it takes double energy to do that. And it's such a waste. I mean, our energy is very precious. Our energy is what the universe uses to make a difference in the world. And so if we're selfishly using our power to stuff down stuff that we know we need to do or not be effective, then it's just it's a nice storm to distract people and for us not to come together. So I think setting the expectation that you're there, use me, right? But a lot of people, they don't even want to be there. So that's fine. Maybe apparently they're not ready to be there at this point. So the way life is and the way I've seen it happen is you are always given ample opportunity to come face to face with your reality. Am I going to deal with this? Am I not? Am I effectively bringing value to the world or am I not? I mean, if you're really setting the expectation to be valuable to the world, then you'll notice those things. You have to. They're in your head. You can't stop that. You can't stop hearing them. And I'm just talking about from me. So I don't know if that works for anybody else.
Deborah, you're reminding me a lot of experiences I've had where when I feel more in alignment with my purpose and I'm like very in an excited, high vibration type of mood where doors just open in a way, or synchronicities happen, and everything starts feeling right. And it does feel like there's definitely these ebbs and flows in life where it's not so much that way, but there's definitely that synchronicities, that feeling of synchronicity in life has been one of the things that's really guided me in a lot of ways to keep hold of this idea. The whole reason I have the interconnectedness tree of life thing, and why I believe there's a greater God, a natural law, all those type of terms we could use, a cosmic law, love, is because of that feeling that you can sometimes feel it, that you're on the right path and things just work. And the universe, some people kind of talk about it in that new agey way, like the universe is bringing me things, which can get kind of silly, but in a more real way, when you're on a path, when you're on a purpose, in other words, you already did the hard work of digging the ditch, and now everything's working out and the concrete's fitting in there perfect. It's because you were on that path, like the arrow. That's why you were able to hit that target.
Right. And I know that it might sound new agey, so I don't care what people define it as. All I know is it works. It's a thing that certain people are given, and we can all explore in order to learn how to maybe systematize it and use it better. Because God only knows, we really need to come to the table at this point and figure a lot of stuff out. So, and the tree of life behind you, see, like each one of those branches, it's not really the branches that's important. It's when you go down below and you get into that root section. See, it's that grounding and that root section that's where the tree really has its power. That root section is its foundation, and that foundation, from that foundation springs all those wonderful branches, and so we're all like a tree. And then when we come together, we're all like those branches, and look how they're all together, how they work together, how each, leaf is beautiful, and each branch, does its job. And it's just, based on the foundation of understanding our value. So I love your tree of life back there. It reminds me every time I see you. That's awesome.
And it's also like our cycles too, right? Like you can't have that energy to live life and be all excited if you don't spend some time sleeping and letting your body heal. It's like that natural balance of the universe has to start. And that's, I think, to me, one of the real struggles is our modern culture is just so stuck in materialism and the outcome of things, and what we're seeing right now, where what we're seeing right now is the culmination of all the little things that happen leading up to right now. And we're experiencing the outcome of what the input has been over the past, however many years. And so, you can't change what's happening right now at all. It's already here. But what we can do is put our time and energy forward and let that turn into something that's real in the future. And by putting our intention, and then we follow through with actions, then we can make these things happen. So what we're doing is talking about this stuff, is doing that process. It's the beginning stages, right?
Couldn't agree more.
Amazing. It's amazing. So, and congratulations to everybody who graduated, and congratulations to the ones who I think have already graduated. I think I see some of them too. So it's exciting time. That's what I know. Call it whatever, but it's exciting time. So
I think that's one of the subtle things. It's such a learning process, because if for those who are indoctrinated, there is a reward system, right? So when we step out of that, we kind of start getting punished from the system, and then we're like, wait, why am I getting punished? Because we're going along with, okay, I have observed something, and I'm going to go along with this feeling that I know I'm doing the right thing. But when we're pulling away from the system, we kind of get hit with, all right, no, you're not doing the right thing. Come back in here. So we have to navigate out of that and into new areas where that's the great thing about autonomy, is that it is voluntary. People are working together individually in a community, because the danger happens because we can create another structure and jump into another problem. You know what I mean? That's why I think it's good people are talking, because it's very easy. Like what I forget who it was. It's like, the freedom fighter that frees them from the hand that crushes can become the hand that crushes. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not saying we would do that, but that's always the idea of trying to understanding what we are coming out of, to make sure we don't create the same structures or problems that created it in the first place.
So this is the crux of it. And when we're coming out of these schooling systems and these indoctrination systems, and we have these cattle chutes of frustration or aggression because we have a roadmap of how to be successful in life that totally doesn't match the terrain of what goes on. in reality. And Autonomy, like you mentioned, actually steps in and provides that educational platform so that you don't have to go through frustration or aggression because you can't meet your needs. It actually provides you a skill set and the rite of passage to meet your needs and go forth into the world. And like Adam was saying, that is a passage. So I found, especially now coming to the end of Autonomy and going through this graduation, it's not like there's other tertiary paths. It's either forward into the life that I entered the course explicitly saying that I want to live, which is going to take work and it's going to take a lot of my own adaptation and perseverance. But it's either forward or it's backwards. There's no necessarily in between for that process.
And you're writing your own script.
Absolutely, I'm choosing to go forward and use these skills to build what I said I wanted to build when I first entered.
I guess for me that's the observation where those who are going into the compulsory education system, they step out into the other, now the structure, where the autonomy graduates or people taking these steps of autonomy step into the unfoldment of their life using the skills they have. That's a beautiful thing.
It is. I don't know who came up with it, but they're brilliant.
Yeah, we got a cohort of people just happy to be living autonomous lives, I'll say. I noticed it when I entered. The graduates who were successful, I noticed that there was a lot of people that went through the course that were no longer in it, that just looked like they did cool projects. And in my 2 seasons of growing, there have just been so many cool people that are working on real, genuine solutions to the world. And that's one of the unadvertised parts that I think we could all concur with is the crux of it. Because as far as the community and interactions go, here we are doing it live.
Do it live.
Do it, live.
Do it live.
Do it. We living. All right. How long do these things normally actually go for? I'm loving the conversation.
Long as needed.
As long as we want to go for. All right.
Yep.
Who has graduation story they want to bring to the table? Point of conversation to research.
Who feels now that they're either like got to be a part of a season, a half a season, the end of a season, or a full season, or their second or third season? Who feels like things are just now getting started?
That's me for sure. Yeah, Joanna.
Yeah, definitely. Not likewise.
Yeah, I've just begun. I feel like I've just begun. It's like I feel like I'm when I was gonna start building a house and I was just looking at this dirt, and all we've done is gone out and take some measurements, and it's like in that part of the phase of the construction, it's like a long, slow, grueling process, and that's where I feel like I'm at. But on my construction jobs, I always had these like really ragtag, derelict type of crews. But I look around here and I see all these like heroes, and I'm like, okay, I stand a much better chance on this project with these folks than I ever have in construction work. So maybe I can actually learn how to do this stuff. So I feel very hopeful from what I've in my few weeks being here and starting to interact with folks. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm a bit ragtag myself, but I feel like I'm just beginning myself.
Yeah, and it was constant growth from the first 3 weeks on of Autonomy for me, and even now it's not what I expected I would go through as far as life circumstances and events and the actual things that I wanted to build that would bring in money and facilitate the lifestyle that I wanted to live. But now that graduation's happened, it's like, okay, I can get over my paralysis by analysis. There's zero excuse that I have for not knowing what I need to do to be successful anymore. And it's really just a matter of I have time to schedule my success, go out, have these conversations with people, and actually get things moving forward, because it's not just in the classroom anymore. This is where the theory meets practicality, rubber hits the road. I slam it in first and have a blast. Keep
Good
going
stuff.
from there.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds yeah. Sounds like a course of action. And I'm glad myself. Like I just feel like I'm beginning, and even as being in the fourth season, and I'm so glad that we are able to engage with it at each season it goes on, and to continue these conversation as it is. So it's it's a growing process.
Definitely a lot of gratitude just for being amongst the group, having the opportunity to have this information and grow in this way.
I'd be kind of curious from you guys. I've talked to Deborah a little bit about how she gets along in her business, but I'd be curious to see how you guys have actually managed to use these skills to like get by in life and make money and survive, trade value outside of the traditional ways that have actually worked for you, and how that's changed, because that's something I'm curious to do, and curious how that process actually has worked for people.
So the first time I actually used an autonomy skill set in the real world was just at a party. I used the interview skill set, sitting by the fire with somebody that I didn't know. Ended up coming to a conclusion where I helped him just open to some possibilities aside from college. Let's see, I went to apply at a Ford dealership, and I had one of the senior sales say that I was beyond the in understanding of the sales process, as far as just building relationships with people and having conversations. I knew more than most of the people he'd interviewed for the last 20 years, and that was just after watching the autonomy sales lectures, two of the three sales lectures for the first season that I went through that. And I actually didn't go with that job because there were different opportunities open for me through autonomy that I thought were higher, better use of my time than selling cars for 100-year-old company. And lastly, I was able to get in as a volunteer at a makerspace, really just through talking with them. It's not like I'm making money with it, but I have the skill sets to take what I'm learning there, combine with some people, and create courses online to make a marketing campaign. So it is a longer format. Like my success, I'm building it in the future and pulling it towards me strategically. I have enough comfort and padding that I'm okay with doing that at this moment.
Yeah, for me, it just opened up like in where a lot of the businesses that like one of the business I was working in last, they were all closed. So the limited experience I had with engaging with the online community, especially and the idea of monetizing it, has just totally opened up in ways that I wasn't aware of before. And I'm just looking at it as it's going to grow. That's really what I've got from autonomy. Just understanding that people are doing this in this way, and that it's something that is growing, and for me, it's like obvious. It's obvious that it's not only it's a necessity, one, for the sake of maybe just basic freedoms, but this is going to grow in a manner that is something that I think we all want, at least for myself, the values that I want to apply in my own. I found a place where, okay, this is not just about making money. These people are putting together, are doing this from a foundation of values, which I wasn't expecting to find. So that's really my benefit of maybe it is about moving forward for me in a different area, which I'm hoping to get back to where the other areas I was in once, but it's just a matter of to see what happens in the world that's upside down at the moment. So that's my perspective,
My struggle has been for quite some time coming to realizations about the problems in the world, and then coming to the realization that it's up to me to do something about it and just quit noticing it and be part of the change. But feeling like hogtied, where by the time I'm done doing the basic necessities of survival to make enough money to pay the bills, to eat and all that stuff and get home from doing all that, having so much time and energy left to now try to do something creative, late in the day after I'm already physically spent, and really seeking to start cutting out this hole in my life where I have more time to just focus on doing what really gives me the most joy, which is things that are closest to my true purpose of building community, philosophy, moral principles, those things that I get really excited. And so how I find myself into spending all of my time doing those things I'm passionate about. And why shouldn't that be a value? Those are the most valuable things that humans should care about. So trying to convince a world that's already turned upside down on what's right and what's wrong is quite a task. But I see the potential, and now I'm starting to see like little roadmaps and rivers of possibilities of doing those things that I've been dreaming about, and actually walking down the path a little bit instead of just imagining that such a path exists.
And that's the dream. Yeah, I had read the 4-Hour Work Week, and it spontaneed me just being like, yes, I need that lifestyle. I know I deserve that lifestyle, but I was a teenager, and it's like that education for how to live that way didn't exist, and for me, until Autonomy. And Autonomy really was like that educational component to the 4-Hour Work Week. That's, you want to live this life where you get to choose how to spend your time, and you got to have enough money and income to have the ability to spend the time that you want to spend the time. And that's just the system that we're in now. It's not a good or bad thing, but Autonomy was that placeholder that's, here are the skill sets for how to do this. And it makes sense to me because I have resistance to success. I have resistance to making money from early age things that went on that aren't related to my current present situation. So Autonomy is also what takes away those excuses and just empowers me to believe in myself that I can do those things. And as of right now, like, yeah, the money hasn't yet came in, but the mindset has been set, and I'm operating in the culture of excellence in the things that I do, and I'm productive in my days. And just go ahead and say, watch, I've been through Autonomy for a season. Check back in a year, because the train's already moving.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and there's something to be said also for just the conversation, even with the Q&As, to be able to sit and what, it's not a judgment, but to be around people who are willing to sit and listen and speak for an amount of time, it's just a healthy process. To deal every day where people aren't just talking to hear themselves speak, or talking to get to sell whatever they're selling to get. It's nice. It's something that we need, I think, as individuals, and that we can carry into that gives us fortitude. You know what I mean? Because I kind of had to hit a lot of obstacles, and trusting, I was like, all right, I got to stand on the ideas that I had of what the right thing was to do. And Autonomy kind of came in, like, you know what I mean? It emerged. So for me, it was like, oh, wow, it's one, not to go spirit, but these things, I think for me, my feeling is these things do emerge when we put ourselves in that right place to do what we have to do, So for me, Autonomy is like, it's a great place where I was running into a lot of walls, and this has been, oh wow, it's like a bit of an oasis of action. I'm not, you know what I mean? That's really what it's been for me. And to have this conversation is not available everywhere. So for me, that's a big part of to move forward, and to be able to monetize things without prostituting ourselves to, Anyway.
I can relate with that. I'll give a short anecdote on that, and it kind of relates to what's happening now. I took a sales training about 10 years ago about how to set up a corporation and how to get initial funding or financing for it. And I felt like I was in a similar place to where I am now. And I was in a similar conversation such as this. And what we left with from that conversation was, can you imagine where we're going to be in 3 to 6 months as we really take this knowledge and really put it into the world? I think there's this trap that you have to see something so immediate that, and that's not how the world works, is let's put this knowledge out in the world. Let's apply it. Let's do some things with it. And you'll see some growth from that. You're going to see some productivity from it. You're going to see, but more importantly, you're going to see results. And so going back to that previous training, I went back to a kind of like a follow-up training 6 months later. And I was in a room with 200 other people, and the question came up, hey, you got this knowledge 6 months ago. What did you do? And I was able to stand up and say, well, I did everything that I was shown. I set up a corporation, did blah, 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 applied for my first loan, and I got the loan and the financing and all this other stuff. And just to watch the response from the other 200 people, it was standing applause. It was, hey, you did something with it. And I think that's kind of what we can expect moving forward, is we're going to see different layers of success as we put this out there. And I'm excited for every person on this call and everybody that's excited, that's involved with Autonomy, because as we start putting it out there, you're going to see some things. And I look forward to hearing what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
That's it. And freedom is the super marathon, not the sprint.
That's right.
I always have to compare. I'm tend to like when I'm trying to learn how to do something new, I usually try to draw some parallel to something I already know. So I find myself always making these analogies to construction work. But like early in my career of learning carpentry, there was a lot of experience and knowledge I didn't have. And so I would kind of make it up for it in a way by looking at the other tools that guys had, and I would go out and get those tools. And so I would start to look like somebody who could do that job. And then they would allow me to do that job because I had the tool to do that job. And then once I was doing it, I could start learning the techniques and actually get better at it over time. It took practice. So the analogy is that, like Richard Grove's lectures are starting to give me these tools. Like I'm starting to put these different tools in my belt. Like, okay, that's how to make a negotiation, or, that's the type of looking at something from a done perspective, how, does something done right? Each of these little concepts he's teaching me are these tools, but I'm still clumsy with them. I don't really know where to apply them, or, the right nail I'm supposed to be pulling yet. But it's all more possible now that I have these tools, and when I'm able to start using them, then I can start by communicating with you guys and seeing how you guys get business done. Maybe I can start actually getting that experience, and I think that's a pretty cool opportunity here.
Yeah, thank you, Danny, and thank you, Chris. Great insights and points to bring up around our subject. I really appreciate you joining in with that. All right, James, do you got anything with us?
No, thanks for the conversation. Thanks. I'm glad to be a part of this, and yeah, hope to have more soon.
All right, season 4, week 13. Do it live. Joshua Hale, do you want to write it off?
So great to hear this powerful conversation. You guys went deep. I'm going to have to catch some of that on the replay because, it was well worth revisiting. Great to hear your guys' experience. And yeah, this is just the beginning. From here, all doors start opening up, and it's up to you to walk through them. And I look forward to seeing you guys all in the next season. I just heard this material for the 4th time. And again, things just start jumping out. We're like, did Rich say this last time? I don't think he said this last time, because this is new to me. So there's layers and layers and layers to it. And then And then when you start practicing it and like taking it to the marketplace, then you get to like really start learning out in the arena, getting bumps and bruises next to the rest of us. So thank you all for tuning in for this season. We're going to take a break for a few weeks. We'll be back with the kickoff of season 5. Oh man, can't wait for season 5. It's going to be so good. Make sure to hug your loved ones, get outside when you can, and we'll see you guys in 2021.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
Good to see everybody.